Hello, friends. This is Chandrakant from Akul Mac Technologies, and welcome to Top Brass. In today's session of Top Brass, we have a very distinguished personality joining us from Texas today, and she is the chief penguin of IBM. Her name is Melissa. Melissa, welcome to Top Brass.
Thank you.
So, Melissa, I think you work with a lot of entrepreneurs globally, and you also work with a lot of youth programs across the world in many countries. And I think today we wanted to pick your brains about digital skills because you work with all types of people, young, privileged, underprivileged, entrepreneurs, even web technology companies in many countries. So, what is the major skills that is required for all the people going forward from here?
So I have a framework that is my favorite framework, and I actually pulled it up on my phone here. Um, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you what I'm looking at. Can you see that? Can you see that? All right, cool. Maybe you can't see exactly what's on there, but I use something and I'm going to walk you through it. So if you see me looking down a bit, if you see me kind of grabbing my phone, I'm not texting at the same time. I think the reason why I have this out in front of me is because it's my favorite framework. Now, where did I get this framework? How did this come about? My PhD research is on the digital inclusion of underrepresented and underserved communities. And I focus on a gamut of skills that people need in order to make meaningful use of the internet. So that's generating outcomes, whether that's economic outcomes, educational outcomes, or that's just a matter of being safe online, right? And I spent several years researching all of the frameworks that exist on the planet, and which kind of leads into one of the positions that I have in the world, which is with the IEEE. And so I'm the chair of the Digital Skills Working Group, or the Digital Intelligence Working Group within IEEE, the largest engineering organization on the planet, 400,000 members worldwide. And throughout this literature review for both my academic career as well as my chair position within the IEEE, I identified what I consider to be my most favorite framework. I don't own the framework. I didn't create the framework. I really kind of looked across the world and identified what I would consider and what IEEE is in the process of doing is what I would consider a standard definition of what it means to be digitally intelligent. So we've heard of emotional intelligence, right? Daniel Goleman's research that looks at, how do you manage yourself? How do you manage your relationships? How do you identify, emotional factors in others? We look at intelligence and we track these things, right? We have a definition for what it means. We measure it. We calculate it. And if you think about literacy, we have a definition for what that means, right? We track it, we measure it. We know in India, for example, the percentage of people who are literate. And forgive me, I can't remember the number. That said, we all know it exists. We report out on it from a World Bank perspective, from the UN, countries, villages, schools, and people, right? But think about it. If digital literacy is the new literacy, we should have a framework and a definition. I'm not sure if anyone knows this, but we do not. Even the UN doesn't have a standard definition of what it means to be digitally intelligent. They have put out, meaning UNESCO put out a report some time ago with a number of different frameworks. It didn't include my framework. So what I did, well, the framework that I identified. And so what I did is I wrote a piece for the UN High-Level Panel for Digital Cooperation, which is headed up by Jack Ma and Melinda Gates, with advisory support and leadership from Vint Cerf, the father of the internet, chief internet strategist at Google. And I wrote this piece. You can find it online through the coalition or through again, the UN High-Level Panel for Digital Cooperation. You can find that by Googling that plus my name and it'll come up. And I pointed out how the world needs to rally around a framework of what this means. And by the way, here is another framework that wasn't considered in some of the pieces. And I've heard some rumblings that perhaps it's either already been released or will be released, including this additional framework. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through the framework. Again, this is a framework that was created by the DQ Institute, which is based out of Singapore. They, along with me and my advisory position within the IEEE, the OECD, and the World Economic Forum have come together to create what's called the Coalition for Digital Intelligence, thus adopting this framework. So I'm going to start off by saying there are a lot of what I would consider competencies, and see this as a wheel of competencies. You're going to dial things up and dial things down, depending upon your interest level, depending upon your career, depending upon your academic journey. But it all has, something to kind of rally around in terms of technical competencies, cognitive competencies, metacognitive, and socio-emotional competencies. And there are essentially three levels of it. So you consider yourself as, let's say, knowledge that surrounds itself around skills, attitudes, and values. So the first one is digital rights. And digital rights, if you think about this is your rights to be able to participate in the digital economy. Your intellectual property rights. So if you create something, do you own that? And what do you know about ownership when it comes to creating technical solutions or creating, technical works of art, if you will? And the other piece is privacy. How do you understand and manage your privacy? Who has access to your data when you post it online? Those are the three aspects of what I would consider, and what the DQ Institute considers, as well as the Coalition for Digital Intelligence considers, digital rights. Now, what's interesting is people often use digital intelligence, digital literacy, and digital skills interchangeably. This model actually looks at digital literacy as a separate component within that wheel of competencies when we're talking about digital intelligence. And one of the things includes data and AI literacy. Now, we know that not everybody is going to be a data scientist, not everybody is going to jump in the world of AI. That said, you might just be aware of what that competency entails, but you might not actually be a practitioner, and you might not also be empowering others and teaching other people your skills. So as you think about these different big buckets, and then the three items that make up these big buckets, you might be aware that this exists, you might have learned it, you might be a practitioner and teaching others. So that's what I mean by you're dialing these skills up and down. So again, under digital literacy, data and AI literacy, the next one would be content creation and computational literacy. Now, when I say computational literacy, what I mean by that is, can you code? Do you understand the introductory building blocks of what it means to code? Have you written a line of code like Hello World, which is only what I've written? Or are you building applications? Are you creating content? Are you building, websites or mobile applications or IoT devices? And are you empowering others to do so after you've learned? So again, that looks at that wheel of competencies. The last component of digital literacy is media and information literacy. So basically what I'm saying here is that being able to recognize media misinformation and disinformation is a component of being digitally literate. So when you get onto Facebook or whatever social platform you fancy, or you get an email, or you get a text, or whatever it is that comes, in a news article, do you understand and know how to evaluate that article or that piece or that post from your friend to know, is it reputable? Do the sources make sense? Is there something funny about it that, maybe just someone else's opinion? We've heard about, different, farms, if you will, digital farms, existing in certain parts of the world where they're trying to sway you to vote one way or another, or they're trying to sway you from one candidate or another. How is it that you can critically evaluate that article and know, is this real or is this fake? An easy way to do that is you see that article, you go out and you go to Google, you go to Bing, you go to whatever, and you search for that particular topic. And you look and see, is this the only place that it was written? How reputable is that piece? Does it look a little outlandish and crazy? Are there a lot of grammar errors or spelling mistakes? Does the language that you speak, does it sound like you would normally write? These are some of the things that I look for when I determine, is this a valid source or not? In the age of where we get a lot of information from YouTube and a lot of information from bloggers, remember, a lot of that stuff is self-created. How reputable is that material as we go to vote in elections? And that's extremely important, obviously, right now, as my country, the United States, goes into its elections. A lot of controversy, a lot of divide. How do you make sure that you are being a good corporate citizen by critically evaluating what's in front of you and being a responsible citizen by knowing what you should share, what you should not share, and also helping your friends, your family, and everyone around you understand how to determine whether something is real and fake. And I'll tell you, with the rise of deep fakes, so things that look really real, where it looks like, President Obama, President Trump, Hillary Clinton, whomever else, it looks like their lips are moving exactly. Did you know that you can actually create videos where you can splice things together, make it look like that person is saying it, their mouth may be moving exactly the way you expect it to move, yet it is a deep fake? Or someone has created an AI solution that makes it look like it's a real person, a real kid who's been impacted by something. This is really important when we think about terrorist activities or nefarious characters. So we've went through two of them. The third one is digital communication, public and mass communication. So again, I think that one's highly related to media misinformation and disinformation. How do you know where to get, your information and evaluate it clearly and comprehensively? How do you communicate and collaborate with others as we're all working from home or studying from home or not being able to access the coffee shop or the restaurant, and we've alternated, we've transitioned our lives from one thing to another? How are we using social media? How are we using messaging? How are we using online collaboration tools to communicate and collaborate with others? I use a lot of different things in my daily life. I use Trello, for example, to keep track of timelines and my project management activities. I have colleagues that use Mural to do online whiteboarding. We have Slack for instant communication. We have WhatsApp to communicate with our friends. I use it a lot for work. We use a lot of different tools in addition to just thinking about social media and email. There are a lot of very interesting things. We're using a Zoom platform right now. So how can you, connect with others who are in other parts of the world, or maybe next door, but we can't get over there to see them for a variety of issues that we're all facing with COVID-19. The last piece of digital communication is digital footprint management. How are you managing your footprint online? So if you get online and you post something, where is it going? Where is that post that you made? Is someone taking a screenshot and posting it over somewhere? Do you care about that? Are you, managing your privacy settings on Facebook? For me, I alternate my privacy settings when I'm talking about digital skills or entrepreneurship or training opportunities or tech for good, a job opportunity. I make it public. If I'm posting something that is maybe me and my kids, I might make that private. I might not want everybody to see that. That said, all my followers can see it. All my followers can screenshot it, and they can do whatever they want to with it, and I may not even know. Recently, someone created a Instagram profile that looked just like my name and stole my pictures. I didn't notice it until someone was next to me and I was typing in my Instagram account so that they could connect with me. So I had their phone. and I saw that there was another M Sassafras. That's my Instagram handle, and it was M Sassafras with a underscore after it, and it was my picture, the same picture that I had in my Instagram. So I clicked on it and I saw all my pictures. So essentially, what someone had done was clone my account by taking the pictures and creating an alternative account. So my digital literacy, my digital skills, my digital intelligence told me I need to report that. And I need to talk to my friends to report that. So my friends reported it, I reported it, and I submitted something to Instagram. Within X amount of days, that profile was taken down. But what's interesting is that account blocked me, so I didn't know it existed. I only found out because I had my friend's phone. And I wouldn't have found it if I hadn't had my friend's phone looking for it. That's scary, right? Because how many times are we going into someone else's phone and looking for ourselves and our social media platform? Or figuring out where someone has put some of your pictures. This can often be very scary for young women who have been impacted by someone who might have used artificial intelligence to put their face onto someone else's face. So imagine your face onto someone else's face doing something precarious or doing something risque that might not have been something that you did, and posted on some site that you might not, find palatable or acceptable for your norms and values. How do you find that? You might never find it. All right. Now we're going to talk about digital emotional intelligence. This is just like emotional intelligence. So just like Daniel Goleman's research, if you haven't read any books by Daniel Goleman, I would recommend it. I love his books. He's got a whole packet on relationship management, etc. Go ahead.
Before we move to the digital intelligence, I like to say that I fully agree with you the points that you made. In fact, especially in the democratic world, from where you and I belong, there are a lot of narrative creation happens, especially around the elections. And in a country like India, the elections are happening every 2 months, and every election is fought like a general election. So if there is a state election, which is a smaller part of India, the impact of that election will have on the next election, which is going to happen after 6 months. And as you know, a country like India has 1.3 billion people, so you can't have one election because there are so many people voting, and the systems availability, machinery, and all that is not possible. So a lot of narrative creation happens throughout the year, and I think you mentioned very valid point in the end that there is a lot of risk, and you need to know exactly what you're doing on the social media platform. So I just want to ask you, is there a program that is promoted by your team or one of your companies where people can get enrolled and get literate around these aspects?
Media, so I would tell you a couple things. I would go to the dqinstitute.org is what I would recommend. I have seen a lot of, programs that exist that look into different aspects of these. I'm actually building a platform right now. It's not launched yet. It'll be ready. I think based on where I am probably next year, that looks at all of these different competencies and allows you in a gamified fashion to play around with these things and earn badges, be able to share your badges in social media, interact with mentors and peers and others. But if you look at this, there is not one single platform that exists on the planet that allows you to learn in a gamified fashion and earn badges. There are a lot of them out there that take on different components of these. So I think I'd have to look at this and tell you, for this, look at that platform. For this, look at that platform. I saw something on media literacy the other day that I was meaning to go through, a brand new one, and I haven't done it yet. So I would have to look at kind of my notes and tell you, hey, these are the ones, but, perhaps we could write a blog about some of the, deep dives into these, and instead of talk about the framework, or maybe have a special session on media literacy and talk about which platform would be appropriate for, the Indian population, because I think some of these things are very location specific. What a, person, what a farmer in Kenya or a rural farmer in, India might need to know might be a little bit different than, a young girl in, rural Arkansas or a city. But let's table that one, and let's call that one another session, and we'll do a deep dive into media literacy if that works for you.
Sure, sure.
Um, okay,
Continue on.
cool.
If you were talking about the intelligence aspect of the digital arena.
Yeah, so this is very similar to regular emotional intelligence. It's got three components. It's relationship management. So, how do you manage your relationships online? Do you ghost people? Do you respond? Do you fire off too many things to them? Do you spam a lot? How do you manage your relationships online? How do you create something that feels like it's in real life? Do you bring your true self? Because a lot of people don't. Do you create this persona online that's not really you? And is that how you manage your relationships? And do people feel like you're the same person online as you are offline? Not everybody is. Some people create alternative personas. How aware are you of others? How do you push your ideas onto others, or how do you respond to their ideas? Are you respectful of their ideas? Are they respectful of yours? Do you have empathy? Are you a troll? How do you respond to trolls? These are important things too. As a young person, are you getting cyberbullied? How do you respond to that? What do you do? How do you report it? Where do you go to report it? If you see something quite dangerous online, something potentially violent, a crime, what do you do about that? How do you manage your feelings, and who do you talk to? There are often circumstances that we've seen when um, a shooting has taken place in the United States or somewhere else, that someone might post an exact video. Maybe that person who committed that crime posts it and shares it. How does that impact people? How does that impact yourself? Should you be sharing some of the things that you share? I've seen, videos of people that might share things that are, extremely disturbing. Do you, indulge in that content? The next piece really goes into security. And that's, how do you manage your own personal security? Your passwords, your password management. Do you tell people where you are at every single moment? I know there are certain places that I might travel to where I don't check in until after I've left. And I do that for my own personal safety. I may do that in many places where I might have left that location an hour ago and I check in as if I'm still there, because I really enjoy, publicizing that I was in this place. I did eat there. I did vacation there. I did spend time there with my friends. Everyone has their own, again, their own comfort level. They dial it down, they dial it up. Think about who all can see where you are, and do you want them to know? I had a situation where I went to a particular city in a particular country to run a coding camp. And it was publicized. It was clear I was there. This made me think about how I manage my own personal safety, because I had an individual who had seen me online, wanted to meet me for alternative purposes than coming and taking part in the coding camp. And so this individual signed up as a photographer and volunteered his skills. And the club, the team that was running this coding camp was like, oh wow, yeah, we need a photographer. It looked legit, it looked fine. In reality, they're trying to get close to me and proclaim his love for me. I'd never met him, I'd never seen him, but he thought he knew me because he saw me on social media and felt like he knew me, even though we'd never interacted before. So think about these things when you're sharing where you're going, who you're with, what you're working on. I, again, dial it up and dial it down depending upon the circumstances and where I am. But that situation made me think about it. Network security management. So, there are many different aspects of that. Are you enabling people to gain access to your network at work? How do you keep your work email, your work logins? We saw what happened with a Twitter incident where nefarious characters gained access to different people's social media profiles and posted different things about Bitcoin. How do these, even the most competent people, often get accidentally involved by clicking on a link? How do you make sure that you are looking at that link, hovering over where it came from, and making sure, did that really come from Apple? Did that really come from my bank? If I get a text, if I get an email that is something about a password issue or a missed payment or validate my credit card, I always go directly to that site and log in to see, is there an issue? Most of the time there's not, and most of the time it's a phishing expedition to see, are you going to respond, and are you going to give away your passwords? Are you going to enable someone to gain access to your bank account, your credit card, your personal details, your personally identifiable information, the stuff that people will need in order to take advantage of you, take your money. There are all kinds of nefarious characters out there. Lastly, organizational cybersecurity management. Again, that's probably more about what I said in terms of network security management.
So let me share some experience from my side. What I've noticed is that such nefarious activities have increased, or rather gone up, after the lockdown, because a lot of people are trying to get access to your personal information. And in fact, a lot of telecom operators and also the bank, a lot of other public agencies are, at least in India, I've seen that every second or third day there is an alert that, hey, don't give your KYC, uh, don't share your information. And I think you are making a very valid point. If there is an email sent to me saying that, hey, validate this credit card or something else, I actually look at the website. Like you said, you have to be very cautious. So I actually look at the website, and many times I've seen that there'll be just one additional spelling in it. So, for example,
That's exactly right. They're very clever. It may look the same. Look for spelling errors. Look to see if it makes sense. You'll discover that there is a lot of, and many of us get them every day. I get them all the time. I don't 9 times out of 10, I don't even look it up, and I don't do anything. And I figure, hey, if my credit card doesn't work, I'm going to go somewhere and it's not going to work. And then I'm going to discover it, because I know my bank is not going to contact me that way. I set up 2-factor authentication. So whenever you log in from a new device, you have to not just put your password, but you have to authenticate or validate that request, through a phone call, through text, through an email, so that you know that it's coming and you know that it's you. Now, we've talked about security. We've talked about being a builder, a creator. We've talked about media misinformation and disinformation. What's interesting is we're going to move on to digital safety. And for me, I kind of look at digital safety and security as one thing. I kind of lump it all in there. And again, we look at behavior, we look at, content, what are you sharing in content that goes out? So am I going to post my social security number, which is something we use to identify ourselves in the US? I'm not. Some people have their birth dates posted everywhere. I don't. I don't have my birthday posted, which means I don't get all those exciting, birthday messages on Facebook, because nobody knows that it's my birthday. So I'm not going to get all those, but that's okay. I don't care. And how am I managing, my community? So is there someone who really doesn't want you to tag them in a particular place? Maybe your friend is a victim of domestic violence. Maybe that person doesn't want anyone to know that they're there, because maybe as a victim of domestic violence, that person might know, wow, so-and-so is here, and now I'm going to go there, and I have the ability to perform violence against that person. So again, I think it's not just about what do you feel comfortable with, but how do others feel as well? And how can you be empathetic to the feelings and thoughts and perceptions of others? I'm going to move on now to digital use, and that's how are you using it how are you using tech and access to the internet from a civic perspective? When it comes to tech for good or social good or being active in the political process. Now, there's a fine line between civic use, encouraging people to vote and that sort of thing, and shoving your idea down somebody's throat. Because when you think about what your political beliefs are, or your religious beliefs, or whether you eat meat, don't eat meat, whatever your beliefs are, and whatever your value system is, if you are a vegetarian, do you want to see someone telling you how much you should eat meat and how awesome meat is and a picture of a slaughterhouse? You
No,
do not want to see that, right? Especially if that is something that religiously is very core to your value system. The same principle applies to politics. How do you make sure that you are open and honest and transparent, but you're not putting people in an uncomfortable situation and making them feel as if you're not listening to their perspectives. I have a lot of friends who post a lot of very, very political things, very charged things, and that's their way, and I respect that. And a lot of people, I do continue to keep them on my social media feed, even if their opinions differ than mine, because I think it is interesting also, even if those beliefs differ from mine, from my morals, from my values. There's a fine line. If someone is sharing child pornography, for example, that's very different. I'm going to report that. If someone is going to post harming an animal, I'm going to report that. Same thing with a human or whatever. If there's very abusive behavior, I'm going to report that. That said, it is nice to understand where do other people come from and respect and be empathetic with their point of view, even if you don't agree to it. And just remember, you can always unfollow someone. If you don't like what they're saying and you don't want to deal with, talking to them about it, you can always unfollow. You don't even need to tell them. You can unfriend if you want. But I also know many people don't feel comfortable unfriending someone because they're afraid that person's going to get mad and notice, and then they're going to have to deal with it and have a conversation. This is where the unfollow comes into play. Yeah, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to talk to you. I still want you in my circle, but I don't want to see your stuff. Naturally, that doesn't exist in Twitter, but there are ways that we can manage these things. If you don't feel comfortable having the conversation with that person who continues to post things that might differ from your personal beliefs.
recently I had an experience which I want to share with you. Uh, on the LinkedIn, I have many followers personally as a professional, and I don't even know how many people are there in my network. I mean, to be very frank with you, and as you rightly said, you think twice before you unfollow somebody. And there is one person when we launched our Top Brass Speaker of the Year award. There's one person for no reason started, and that person is a lady. I don't remember who that person is basically. Maybe I met her many years back, maybe professionally, but she started abusing me on the awards that, you know, uh, you are doing this XYZ. And I said, look, I don't want to talk to you. I didn't even block her or unfollow her. But surprisingly, I got an email from LinkedIn saying that, hey, we have noticed some abusive behavior. Would you like to unfollow that person? I was like very
That's really nice. I didn't know that they did that, and that I think that's great because I think there's a lot of controversy right now around how our social media platforms using our data, and how are they abusing our data? How are they managing trolls or abusive behavior? How are they monitoring it? How are they managing it? How are they shutting it down? Whether that's someone who's continuing to verbally assault you, or someone who is trying to use fake news, because this is where fake news comes into play too, is trying to rile you up and get you excited about your candidate so that you'll respond and share and have a lot of uninformed dialogue. I believe personally that social media platforms need to play a greater role in having responsibility over their content. There are significant amounts of child pornography that happen in social media, in certain circles. You know, Oftentimes, uh, you look at COVID-19, a lot of misinformation around if you do this, you're going to be cured. And I've read a lot of different articles about, people who have been convinced of certain things through social media didn't respond to, someone who might have, someone impacted by COVID-19 or another ailment, and not taking the proper precautions that are guided by medical professionals, and thinking, oh, my friend showed me this, or I got this from this website, and thinking that it was valid by not looking at it appropriately. The next thing I think that's important is both healthy and balanced use of technology. So are you creating, and do you have addictive behaviors? Do you manage your screen time? How much time do you spend online? It can be I know I spend a lot of time on social media. A lot of it's just reading and taking in information and learning, also collaborating. That said, are people really thinking about how much time should my kid spend today? Is my kid playing online games all the time? And it's not just kids, gambling, for example, or pornography, or whatever the case might be. Are there excessive behaviors that either young people or whomever are, taking on, that's harming them or others? And then, that obviously plays a role when it comes to emotional intelligence. How is that impacting you emotionally, socially, mentally, intellectually? The last thing, which I don't think we covered, because I think we started out with digital rights, so this is the last competency in the wheel, and that's digital identity. And that's, are you using technology to drive change in the world? And that could be emotion, or that could be social good. That could be, empowering others to learn to code. It could be climate action. It could be any cause. It could be solving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. They're just talking about them. Are you influencing others to make the world a better place and change? Now, remember, similarly, are you using social media, or are you using technology to make the world a worse place? Is that change bad? Now, all of us, I think, have different opinions on whether social media is good or bad. But just like anything, you can create positive change or negative change. What are you doing to use the technology in front of you to make meaningful change and meaningful outcome? How are you co-creating with others? How are you collaborating with others to create change that brings a large group of people, or just your family, or just your community, into the realm of change? And hopefully it's positive change versus negative change, because nobody likes a troll farm. Maybe the troll does. I don't know why. Maybe they're making money off of clicks. There's a lot of different reasons why people do the things that they do online. I'm going
So,
to leave this with, and one more thing, I'm going to leave this with: be a good citizen. Have digital citizenship that enables you to be a lifelong learner, be a positive influence on others, create positive change, and solve the world's wickedest problems.
I think these are very relevant points that you have told us today, and I think it is something which require a lot of deep study. And as you mentioned some time back, is that what is your identity on the social platform? So I think it's a big problem. What I've heard in India, it's also a big problem because there are a lot of trolls and a lot of fake news websites, and there are certain websites which are not even operating from the Indian soil. So there is nothing much the legal system can
I think
do.
every country has this issue. I read not too long ago that, during the last election in the U.S., they identified, many of the locations of these troll farms, being well outside of the United States, and
No,
that there are certain villages in certain parts of the world where they may make thousands and thousands of dollars off of this, and they don't care about the impact that X candidate or Y candidate has in that local community. But let me tell you, you as an individual, you should care.
certainly. In fact, there is a lot of demand from Indian citizens that to link the social media with the social security number. So we also have a social security number which is based on biometrics. So the fingers and the retina scans, and it has one number which is connected to all the citizens. So there is a lot of demand which is coming up lately now that all the Facebook accounts, Instagram has to have your number attached to it. So I think it's fair. It is not yet enabled, but I think it's
That's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. I'm familiar with the kind of identifiers in India, and a lot of the digital transformation that's happening in India when it comes to the government and the role that technology plays in kind of advancing society. But I wasn't aware of the tie between that and social media. It's an interesting topic. I think it'll be very interesting to see how social media giants or platforms respond to that. Obviously, if they're going to operate in the country and there's a regulatory requirement in place, you either follow the regulatory requirement or you don't do market in that, or you don't do business in that particular country. And with such a large population in India, it was 1.2 billion, right?
1.3, more than 1.3 now.
So crazy. It's impossible for many of these media giants, social media giants, to say that, what, never mind, we're not going to do business there. You have a powerhouse of population and people to drive change.
Yeah, the Snapchat moved out because they didn't want to follow the regulations here. But Facebook is here. I think the Facebook footprint is biggest.
I think India just I think TikTok's gone, right? TikTok's gone in India,
TikTok,
or no?
TikTok is gone. India banned nearly 250 Chinese applications, including TikTok, PUBG,
Oh
WeChat.
yeah, PUBG was the other one. PUBG is so addictive. I have my ex-boyfriend is addicted to PUBG.
Okay, I've never played it because I don't have
It's
time.
not my thing. It's like fighting and shooting, and I downloaded it on my phone and I tried it, but it's just not my thing. But he's addicted. Yeah, he used to stay up all night sometimes and play PUBG. So I don't, like, me as someone who also talks about digital literacy. I have people around me who are not interested in becoming um, media literate, if you will. They're not interested in managing their screen time. So it's really hard, I think, as an individual, even someone who's in the know, to know, wow, how is it that I understand, what the good and bad or the do's and don'ts are, yet I cannot impact the person sitting right next to me.
So I think we had a very interesting discussion today, Melissa, and I think I personally feel after talking to you that there is a huge requirement. There is an opportunity for people who wants to train others to also train about uh, digital literacy. I think it is a huge subject. We can't cover it in 30 minutes, but I think it's a
Mm-mm.
huge.
We can't. I've done a week-long session covering each gamut of the wheel of competencies. So yeah, it's a thing. And don't get worried. You can take on any aspect of this that you want. If I had to kind of pick a few, I would say, IBM has a really great one called Let's Talk Safe Tech. That for me is a great one to just generally think about, and it's a quick training. It's something that actually teachers can take and use to share their skills forward. It's got like a workshop kind of thing. I really like that, and that would be kind of one of the places I would start. I think media misinformation is another one, and I'm kind of evaluating right now which platforms I think are the best for media literacy or media misinformation and disinformation when it comes, because I like doing things that is more gamified. It's a workshop. We all get tired of just watching videos and reading content. we get tired of it, right? When we want to learn something new. As much as we're doing this talk today, we all have fatigue. We're all tired. We want to have something that might take our minds off things a little bit and gamify it a little bit and make it feel like we're playing, the Nintendo Switch, for example, or whatever.
Certainly, Melissa. I think it was a very nice conversation I had with you, and with my viewers, I will get hold of your model and I'll share it along with this video. And thank you so much for joining us today. And
Thank you.
you have a nice day ahead. It's a
Thank
weekend
you.
now.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day. See you.
Thank you, Melissa. Bye bye.